I said that my opponent's initial argument was confusing and vague. However, I still provided an interpretation and analysis of what I thought he was trying to say. After watching my opponent's clarification, anyone witnessing this debate can conclude that I did manage to understand his proposed policy, and not only did I express what that understanding was, but I also explained why I think his proposal is faulty. However, my opponent seems to have failed to notice the negatives that I pointed out about his policy proposal, and I would like now to take the time to restate them and once again explain my thoughts. As I previously mentioned, my opponent's proposed policy is way too broad and would be extremely ineffective. From what I initially understood and pointed out in my own argument, he proposed a ban where schools would be able to decide whether or not they would imply this ban, and I criticized his proposition for being illogical. My opponent wanted to and used his time to clarify that his proposed policy was one where the U.S. should encourage schools to ban sugary drinks in primary and secondary schools, however, that it should not be compulsory. By definition, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the word compulsory means to be required by law or rule. If this is the case, then my opponent clarified that his initially proposed policy is in fact no policy at all. His proposition is basically for the U.S. government to advise schools that a ban on sugary drinks is a good move to make and then to sit back and watch what the schools would do. How that would be effective is something that I can't answer, but to be clear and to again show why the proposal should be rejected, I want to conclude by recounting the events of this debate. First, my opponent started by making an argument that's difficult to understand and proposed a policy that was broad and vague. In my opening, I pointed out the confusing nature of his argument, but still critiqued what was my understanding of his proposition and pointed out exactly why I thought it was an ineffective idea. His response was then a clarification of his proposal, which actually ended up proving that against the confusion, I had in fact understood his proposed policy and highlighted weaknesses about it and its faulty nature. However, my opponent did not even consider the faults that I brought up about his proposal, and by simply restating it again, he gave me the opportunity to repeat why his proposal should be rejected. Proposing a policy that is the encouragement of a ban that isn't compulsory is like not even proposing a policy at all. A banning policy cannot be optional, otherwise it's not actually a ban. It would be nothing else than a suggestion of what to do. All in all, my opponent should be rejected because his policy proposition was confusing, and even after understanding it, it is illogical, not an actual policy proposal, and even if it were, it would be completely ineffective.